What would you do if a dog uncovered the truth in a courtroom? Olivia's story is one of courage, survival, and an unbreakable bond with her loyal protector, Max. But now, we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. And don't forget, a brand new powerful story is coming tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an inspiring story that could change the way you see the world. See you in the next one. She had no words, but her dog spoke for her in the most unexpected way. The courtroom fell silent as 6-year-old Olivia Parker stepped through the heavy wooden doors, her tiny fingers clutching the leash of Max, a retired canine German Shepherd with a jagged scar along his side. Every eye in the room followed the small girl as she made her way toward the witness stand, her movements hesitant but determined. Judge Ryan Mitchell, a man with years of legal experience, leaned forward slightly. He had seen many cases, but this one was different. Olivia was the only witness in an attempted child abduction case, and the outcome rested on her testimony. But there was one major problem. She hadn't spoken a single word since the attack. On the other side of the courtroom, Ethan Grayson, a 46-year-old software engineer, sat at the defense table. His expression was calm, even smug. He had been arrested after an eyewitness placed him at the scene of Olivia's attempted abduction, but his defense was solid. No physical evidence, no confession, and a witness who refused to speak. His lawyer was confident that Olivia's silence would be enough to dismiss the case. But then, something unexpected happened. As Olivia settled into the witness chair, her green eyes met Grayson's. Her small fingers trembled as she made a subtle movement, a hand signal barely noticeable to the untrained eye. Only two beings in the room caught it, Max and Judge Mitchell. Max's reaction was immediate. The moment Olivia's fingers twitched, the dog's ears pricked forward, his muscles tensed, and a low, deep growl rumbled from his chest. His golden brown eyes locked onto Grayson, unwavering and sharp. The reaction sent a ripple of unease through the courtroom. This wasn't just a trained service dog reacting to a child's distress. This was something deeper, something primal. A murmur spread through the spectators, whispers filling the air. Judge Mitchell's gavel came down hard, the sharp crack echoing like thunder through the room. "This court will take a 15-minute recess," he declared, his voice unusually urgent. Prosecutor Jenna Collins shot him a questioning look, but he didn't meet her eyes. Instead, he glanced at Olivia, who clung to Max like a lifeline. Something had just happened in that courtroom, and Judge Mitchell knew they had to figure out exactly what it was before the trial continued. Before the courtroom, before the silence, before the fear stole her voice, Olivia Parker was a bright, talkative child. At just 6 years old, she was the kind of girl who filled a room with endless chatter, her curious green eyes always searching for something new to explore. She loved fairy tales, stuffed animals, and bedtime stories, where each character had a different voice, thanks to her mom's dramatic reading. Olivia had never known fear until that day. It was a warm spring afternoon in May. The scent of fresh flowers drifted through the backyard, and the sunlight painted golden streaks across the grass. Jessica Parker, Olivia's mother, stood at the kitchen window, watching as her daughter twirled in the yard, her pink dress flaring like a ballerina's tutu. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon. It should have been safe. At 3:42 p.m., Jessica's phone rang. It was her sister calling from out of state. Stepping inside for what she thought would be a quick conversation, she kept an eye on Olivia through the glass. 4 minutes. That was all it took. When she returned to the yard, her heart dropped. The back gate stood slightly open, swinging gently in the breeze. Olivia was still there, but she wasn't alone. A black van sat idling near the curb, its side door slightly open. A man crouched beside Olivia, his smile unsettlingly warm. "I have puppies in my van," he was saying, his voice smooth, practiced. "Special ones. They need a little girl to take care of them. Would you like to see?" Jessica's blood ran cold. Her instincts screamed before her mind could even process what was happening. Her voice cut through the air like a knife. "Olivia?" The man's head snapped up. The smile vanished, replaced by something sharp and calculating. And then he grabbed her. Olivia froze. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just stared at him, her body rigid with fear, as if something deep inside her had locked her in place. Across the street, Margaret Reed, a retired nurse, saw everything unfold. "Hey, get away from that child!" she shouted, her voice strong, unwavering. The man hesitated, his grip loosened, just for a second. And that was all Olivia needed. She yanked her arm free and ran. By the time Jessica reached her daughter, the black van's tires screeched against the pavement, leaving behind only the dark streaks of rubber on the road and the overwhelming feeling that something had almost gone horribly, horribly wrong. But Olivia didn't cry. She didn't say a word. She just buried her face into her mother's shoulder and trembled. In the days following the attempted abduction, Olivia grew distant. The joyful, chatty little girl who once filled every room with stories and laughter had disappeared. The spark in her green eyes was gone, replaced by a deep, unsettling silence. She wouldn't play. She wouldn't draw. She wouldn't even speak. Jessica Parker, her mother, watched helplessly as her daughter seemed to retreat further into herself with each passing day. The fear had taken hold of Olivia, shutting down her voice. Nothing seemed to help. Favorite toys, bedtime stories, even her beloved stuffed bunny. Nothing could reach her. Her parents, Matt and Jessica, were desperate. They had consulted therapists, tried different approaches, but the pain in Olivia's eyes never faded. She flinched at the sight of passing cars, her small frame trembling at every loud noise. It was as if her world had become too loud, too frightening. And she no longer knew how to navigate it. And then, after weeks of therapy, a new option was suggested: a therapy dog. At first, Jessica wasn't sure. Would it really work? Could a dog help her daughter when everything else had failed? But she was willing to try anything, desperate to find a way to help Olivia. The decision was made. They visited Dr. Laura Bennett's Animal Rehabilitation Center, a quiet, sterile place filled with the scent of antiseptic and fur. There, Olivia met Max, a German shepherd with a scar across his side, retired from the police force after a heroic career. Max had once been a K-9 officer, a protector, a hero, but now he was here to help heal. Olivia wasn't sure at first. She watched Max from a distance, her fingers still tightly gripping her mother's sleeve. Max remained still, his deep brown eyes never leaving her face. He didn't rush her. Instead, he waited, his calm presence like an anchor in a storm. Slowly, Olivia took a step forward. Her tiny hand hesitated, but then it reached out. Max's eyes softened, and with a careful step forward, he pressed his head into her palm. The moment their hands met, something shifted in the air. For the first time in weeks, Olivia felt something solid, something safe. She didn't speak, but her fingers curled into Max's fur, holding on as if it was the only thing keeping her grounded. It was the beginning of her healing, the first step toward finding her voice again. For the first time in weeks, Olivia had found something, a lifeline. Max, the retired K-9 officer, became her shadow, her guardian, her safe place. She would sit beside him for hours, her tiny fingers tracing the scar on his side, as if trying to understand the story behind it. He didn't demand anything from her. He just stayed. And slowly, things began to change. At night, when the nightmares came, Olivia no longer woke up screaming. Instead, she reached for Max, pressing her face into his fur, his steady heartbeat grounding her in reality. During the day, she started to draw again, simple pictures of a girl and a dog standing side by side, facing dark, shadowy figures. But even though Olivia was healing, the danger wasn't over. In the weeks that followed, FBI agent Tom Reynolds continued digging into the case. The partial license plate collected from the crime scene had led to a chilling discovery: Ethan Grayson's black van. The moment his name entered the investigation, everything clicked. Grayson fit the pattern. The disappearances of 3 other children over the past 2 years had followed the same approach: a quiet suburban area, a black van, and the promise of puppies. But so far, there had been no solid evidence linking him to the crimes. And that's why the trial was so critical. Without Olivia's testimony, they had nothing. The day she walked into the courtroom, gripping Max's leash, the entire room fell silent. Judge Ryan Mitchell watched carefully as she took the stand, her movements small but deliberate. She was afraid, but she wasn't alone. Max sat beside her, his ears perked, his body still, watching Ethan Grayson like a predator recognizing a threat. Then it happened. Olivia lifted her hand. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was a signal, one that Max had been trained to understand. Instantly, Max tensed. His ears flattened, his eyes locked onto Grayson. A low, deep growl rumbled in his chest, vibrating through the silent courtroom. For the first time, Grayson shifted uncomfortably. Judge Mitchell narrowed his eyes. Something had just happened. Something that could change everything. The courtroom was frozen. Every eye was on Max, his deep growl vibrating through the tense air. For the first time since the trial began, Ethan Grayson looked shaken. His usual smug expression wavered, his fingers tightening around the edge of the defense table. Why was the dog reacting this way? Judge Ryan Mitchell sat forward, his gaze flicking between Max and Grayson. Something was happening. Something real. Your Honor, Grayson's lawyer, Michael Trent, shot up from his seat. This is theatrics. The jury is being emotionally manipulated by an animal's reaction. I moved to have the dog removed from the courtroom. But Prosecutor Jenna Collins wasn't backing down. Your Honor, Max is not reacting randomly. He is trained to recognize threats, and from what I can see, he recognizes Mr. Grayson. A murmur spread through the courtroom. Judge Mitchell tapped his fingers on the bench, considering. Then he turned to Grayson. Mr. Grayson, have you had any prior interaction with this dog? Silence. Grayson's jaw tightened. His face twitched. He wasn't expecting that question. And then he made a mistake. He licked his lips, looked down, then shook his head too quickly. A nervous tick. Judge Mitchell caught it. So did Agent Tom Reynolds, who had been watching Grayson closely from the prosecution's table. He leaned over to Jenna and whispered, "He's lying." Just then, a courtroom officer rushed in, handing Jenna a file. She flipped it open, scanned the contents, and her eyes widened. She turned to the judge. Your Honor, we request a recess. There's been a discovery at a remote cabin in Wisconsin. We believe it directly ties Mr. Grayson to multiple child abductions. Another ripple of shock through the courtroom. Grayson's hands clenched into fists. His face paled. The walls were closing in. Your Honor, Jenna continued, her voice firm, we have found another missing child, alive. Gasps. Judge Mitchell's gavel slammed down. Court will recess for 24 hours. As the room erupted into chaos, Olivia looked up at Max, still gripping his leash. For the first time since that terrifying day in her backyard, she felt safe because Max had known the truth all along. What would you do if a dog helped uncover the truth in a courtroom? Olivia's story is a powerful reminder that heroes come in all forms, even on four legs. Max wasn't just a protector, he was the key to unlocking justice. Now, we want to hear from you. What part of this story impacted you the most? Was it Olivia's courage, Max's unwavering loyalty, or the moment the truth finally came out in court? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed an animal showing a deep connection or recognizing something others couldn't? Maybe a pet that sensed danger before you did? Tell us your experiences. And before you go, let us know where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how stories like these connect people all over the world. Don't forget, we have another gripping story coming tomorrow. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Thank you for being part of this incredible storytelling journey.